Welcome back, everyone, to Western Mass News Digital Edition. I'm Chris Pisano.
And I'm Amanda Martin Ryan. The charges against a Springfield man accused of kidnapping a woman and her children back in September of 2024 were dropped this week. The decision came the day before his trial was set to begin. Prosecutors told the court that they could not, in good faith, go forward with the charges. Court documents show that detectives found evidence that called the alleged victim's reliability and credibility into question. It all started back in September 2024 when 39-year-old Eli Hall was reported missing in Springfield. He was found 3 days later, but then days after that, the woman he was staying with made claims involving domestic violence and kidnapping, and he was taken into custody. Now, after months of investigation, those charges have been dropped.
New this afternoon, Springfield police arrested a man on Tuesday in connection with a May shooting in Wilbraham. Just before midnight, back on May 29th, Wilbraham police officers responded to Springfield Street for a report of shots fired. An investigation continued through the summer, and 29-year-old Michael Murdoch was identified as a suspect. Springfield police found and arrested him on Tuesday after a traffic stop. They found a loaded firearm, almost 5 grams of cocaine, and more than $600 in cash inside the car.
Two brothers in Eastern Mass are facing a range of charges following their arrests earlier this week under suspicion of trafficking drugs into Western Mass. Troopers found out the two suspects, brothers Elijah and Isaiah Travers, had a significant amount of fentanyl in a Weymouth apartment complex Monday night. The two were detained when they left the building. A search of the apartment found more fentanyl, cocaine, 2 guns, cash, and marijuana. Police say the brothers were trafficking the drugs from Eastern Mass into Western Mass.
The Amherst Pelham Regional School District has filed a complaint to reverse efforts made to reinstate a middle school guidance counselor who was fired for allegedly misgendering students. A few weeks ago, Delinda Dykes was reinstated to her position. She was let go following a Title IX investigation back in 2023. A regional school committee chair member says the decision reflects their duty to uphold the values of school communities.
An Army sergeant is in custody after 5 soldiers were shot at Fort Stewart yesterday in Georgia. Today, all the victims are continuing to recover. The alleged gunman, Cornelius Radford, opened fire at his workplace yesterday morning on the sprawling military base. Again, that's in Georgia. He was taken into custody after nearby soldiers helped subdue him. A law enforcement official says the suspect had a disagreement with one of the shooting victims Tuesday, though an exact motive remains under investigation.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. The time right now is 3:33, turning out to be a beautiful day. Look at this. We actually have some blue sky today, indicative of the air quality being better and the smoke situation as well being much improved out there today. We do have a temperature of 82 degrees. We're going to settle right around where we are now as we slip into the rest of the afternoon and then evening. Our AQI is at a 53, so we're just about there. Anything under a 50 is good air, so close enough as our air quality continues to improve. If you remember, on Tuesday, this number was up over 150. So certainly getting relief from the smoke and the poor air quality. We have a prolonged dry stretch that's going to last through the weekend and into probably the middle part of next week. Beautiful weekend on the way. And next week we're going to get hot and then we're eventually going to get humid. That heat and humidity is going to be returning. We've been dry in the valley and we've been watching a few downpours and showers across Berkshire County, kind of like yesterday. This is where the boundary has set up, and it looks as though we'll stay dry in the valley the rest of the afternoon and evening. And any showers over the next couple of hours across Berkshire County will fall apart. You can see them across Vermont, out towards Albany, and down towards the lower Hudson River Valley, but again, moving from north to south and pivoting away from the valley, again, closer to that boundary. We have temperatures in the lower 80s in the valley, 70s to near 80 across the hill towns. A lot of green showing up on the map now. That's great. That means dew points are in the 50s. That's nice and comfortable. Still some humidity across Berkshire County, but our flow subtly coming in from the east. It's clearing out our air. It's bringing down the dew points. Visibilities last couple of days around like 4 or 5 miles because of the haze and smoke. They're up around 10 miles now. Let's go hour by hour. As we head into the evening, we'll see more sunshine as we head towards sunset. Sunset at 8:01. Temperatures low to mid 80s will be in the 70s by about lower 70s by 8 o'clock. By tomorrow morning, we're down into the 50s for overnight lows, so you can maybe either shut off or keep the ACs off overnight tonight. We'll cool off nicely. And tomorrow, low to mid 80s. Beautiful day tomorrow. Sunshine with just some high clouds around. Dew points will be staying low. Just a delightful Friday, and that's going to lead into a beautiful weekend as well. You can see by tomorrow morning we are down into the 50s. There'll be a few high clouds around tomorrow. The sun will be able to shine on through, mid 70s by noontime, and then into the lower 80s as we go into the afternoon for your Friday. And we're going to cool off nicely tomorrow night as well. What a delightful Friday evening on the way. Look at these dew points, generally in the 50s as we head into the weekend. It gets hot Sunday, but low dew points. It gets even hotter the beginning part of next week. Not too humid yet, but those dew points will be going up as that week goes on. Your backyard forecast for tomorrow, we're going to see 78 to 82, sun and clouds, comfortable. Lying out, it'll be great. Just make sure you have that sunscreen, of course, but go in the water, you're fine. Getting out, you're going to be chilly. That dry air mass, it leads to the evaporational cooling from your skin. You get that cooling effect, so you get out of the water on a dry day and you can feel the chill. Your UV index is going to be up around 8 tomorrow, since we should see a decent amount of sunshine. Saturday, low to mid 80s, sea breezes along the shoreline. The Cape will be in the 70s. A delightful Saturday across all of southern New England. Sunday, it's getting hot, 90, but still not that humid on Sunday. It's next week that the heat and humidity are really going to start to pour in as the jet stream lifts and we can have a prolonged stretch of hot temperatures, then eventually humid stuff too. Monday and Tuesday may not be overly humid, but it's getting hot. And we'll highlight Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in red. Potential heat advisories, long way out, but building confidence here that we're going to have the hot weather returning and the humidity for the middle of next week. Probably no storms till maybe the end of next week. Some classic August stuff here, comfortable stuff, and then the heat and humidity returns. It is August after all. All right, that's a look at your forecast. We'll see you at 4 o'clock. Amanda and Chris, back over to you.
All right, Dan, thank you. Today marks National Lighthouse Day. It was this day in 1789 that Congress approved the act to establish the construction of the first federal lighthouse.
And the many years since, the beacons of light have helped to keep ships at sea safe. Oh my goodness. The Little Brewster Island Lighthouse site on Boston Harbor is the oldest site in North America, dating to 1716. That's crazy. The Sandy Hook Lighthouse in New Jersey, built in 1764, is the oldest operating in the U.S. By the end of the 19th century, the U.S. had the most lighthouses of any nation. However, with expensive maintenance and modern nautical navigation, the number of operating lighthouses are declining.
But they are still beautiful.
That's incredible. 1764, was that the date?
It's a little while ago.
Just a little bit. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for watching today's Western Mass News Digital Edition.
And be sure to tune in to Western Mass News at 4, coming up soon on ABC 40. Have a great day.